Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to panel 2 discussion on post-competitiveness of African air transport. Apologies for the delay in the session. We do hope that we'll be able to catch up on time, and we'll delve right into it. This panel discussion will have on stage 4 panelists, and I will make the quick introduction before I hand over to our moderator. Our first panelist is Mr. Randy Heisey, the Managing Director of Commercial Marketing for the Middle East and Africa and Russia and Central Asia regions at the Boeing Company. Randy was appointed to his role in 2020, and he leads the team responsible for commercial airplanes and services marketing throughout these regions. Our second panelist is Mr. James Bosse. He is the Sales Director, Africa, for the de Havilland Aircraft of Canada Limited, and he has held this position since October 2019. James is a highly accomplished aviation and finance professional. He has extensive global experience in aviation finance, leasing, and banking, having worked previously at GCAS. Our third panelist is Mr. Noel Ngala, the Director, Commercial and Ground Operations, Sky Airlines. He's also the Chairman of AFRAA Aeropolitical Committee. Noel is a strong believer of the African Renaissance, and he's an experienced senior airlines executive and jurist with extensive international exposure and proven commercial leadership capabilities for the last 16 years. And our fourth panelist is Mr. Francisco Moraes, Sales Director, Embraer. Francisco has 25 years of experience in the aerospace industry, solid technical background, and extensive knowledge in airline operations and the airline business. He's been with Embraer for over 18 years, working with aircraft sales and marketing team for the last 8 years in Europe and mostly in Africa. Our moderator is Rafael Kuchi, the Director, Government, Legal, and Industry Affairs at AFRAA. I will now hand over to you, Rafael, and lead us the discussion for the next 1 hour. To our audience, please use the Q&A tab to send us any questions which you will wish to be relayed to the moderator, and this shall be done throughout the discussion. For your comments, please use the comments tab. Interpretation, we have French and English. Please click on the description at the bottom of just below your video, and there is a link, and the instructions of how to access this streaming in French have been posted on the chat box. Thank you very much, and over to you, Rafael.
Thank you very much, Program Director Maureen Kahonge, and thank you to our participants and audience. We're most grateful for the opportunity to be speaking with you. I would want to welcome all my panelists to this discussion. As Maureen indicated, the subject of our discussion is post-COVID competitiveness of African air transport. That is what we will be discussing this afternoon. To give a brief background on the African air transport industry, I know a lot has been said about African air transport already, but just for the purpose of this discussion, I would want just to indicate that as we heard yesterday during the introduction, the opening speeches, the African air transport market, when COVID struck, got pledges from development financial institutions and governments to the tune of some 25 billion. To date, only 2.7 billion of that amount has been redeemed. Now, that is like a drop in the ocean. And this is compared to globally, when some 250 billion has actually been released to the aviation sector to stimulate a restart of the industry. Now, would this help Africa? Will it impact Africa? I am not too sure. Our panelists will help us unlock the issues. Again, there are concerns about taxes and high costs in Africa that is impacting the way business is done. And I think that the ECOWAS region during this pandemic has taken the lead with a view to discussing among the ECOWAS states to actually see how they can harmonize taxes within this region to make the region's aviation industry competitive. Will that help going forward? I am not too sure. But what's more troubling is that we have seen during this COVID period, between last year till now, that some 8 airlines in Africa have already disappeared. Now, are we going to see many more African airlines go into bankruptcies or liquidation before we get out of the COVID? What we need to do to ensure that we are not in that space? And this is what we are going to be focusing on today. And we also know that whilst vaccination is a critical component of getting the industry back, in Africa, the vaccination rate is still, we still got just about 6% of our citizens vaccinated, compared to other regions where it's ranging between 70 and 90%. So, is this going to impact competitiveness? We have challenges also with cost of mobility. We have issues of restricted market access. We have visa constraints. What is going to happen to all of these post-COVID, and whether we are learning lessons from the era now that we would bring to fore after COVID is something that we would be also looking at in the course of discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have quite a lot to talk about today, and the 4 gentlemen on the panel will help me do justice to this, and I would go straight forward to asking them straight.
Hello, I think we seem to have lost our moderator.
Yes.
I think in the interest of time, I could kick off the discussion as we wait for Rafael to join us back. And he has very ably set the scene, explaining what the industry, where we stand in terms of the competitiveness. And we will start with the first question. Africa's air transport recovery compared to other regions, what is your point of view? How are we faring in terms of the progress? And what is holding us back? I will start the question with our first panelist, Noel Ngala.
Good morning to everyone. Good morning to you, Maureen. It's unfortunate Rafael could not connect, and good morning to my co-panelists. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to thank AFRAA. Straight away to your first question in terms of the air transport recovery compared to the previous to other regions and what progress has been made, if I understand well, and what is holding. Well, the African air transport recovery is progressing gradually, and it is not as fast as maybe in other regions, but we think that the intra-Africa traffic, based on various regions' figures, vary. It has picked up in some regions as well as it's still struggling in others. And just like in other parts, domestic traffic has also really improved. So the mostly domestic and regional traffic has improved, but on the general scale, it is still very, very low. Progress has been made as we've seen some markets, most of the markets are open to business. Almost all the airports as well are open with a lot of protocols in the COVID controls and checks, which passengers are gradually getting used to. And for us, we've seen our passenger numbers increase compared to 2019, which is a good indicator that we are really back to business. But however, we still have quite a number of holdbacks. We have a lot of restrictions with concerning traveling, as most countries are imposing the PCR tests, with some with short-term durability and others with long-term, depending on when the test is done. We also have a lot of passenger confidence. We still have constraints in terms of passenger confidence. A lot of passengers are still not really comfortable and confident enough to travel. The economic situations in most of the countries as a result of the impact of the COVID is affecting traveling. And of course, the travel restrictions in terms of the curfews, limitations in flights and frequencies, and all of that. These are some of the holdbacks that we think if we are able to cross, then we'll see an improvement in the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noel, for giving us your perspective. Yesterday, during the discussions, we got some market insights from Mitsubishi, and what was revealed in terms of the sub-regional progress is that different sub-African regions are experiencing different dynamics, and the progress is actually varying, with the Central African region being the one that has got the least progress in the recovery. I wish to ask the same question to one of the OEMs, and to James Bosse. What is the Haviland's perspective on this subject?
Thank you, Maureen, and thank you to AFRAA for the kind invitation to participate in this panel. Look, in the interest of time and going right in, absolutely, the recovery in the aviation sector is predicated on the economic recovery across the continent, especially as we have been ravaged by the after effects of the COVID pandemic. We have seen over the last 1 year, mass shutdowns of travel borders across the industry. We have seen in, as well as the rest of the world within the continent, an absolute standstill, an unprecedented standstill in aviation across the board. And so when you look at it, there are pockets of recovery. What we're seeing from our standpoint is that domestic travel is leading the aviation restart within countries. We have seen pent up demand, both on the business side and indeed both on the leisure side. And this is leading the charge of the blocks in the recovery. But as well, we're seeing early signs or indeed the green shoots of regional recovery, again, predicated on the need for movements of goods, services. E-commerce is one of those that's leading the front as the COVID pandemic has changed the model of business needs. So it is true that, you know, a lot can be done of the economic recovery. We need a lot more to be done to support the airlines financially by the governments using various different initiatives. I think on the positive, I have to point out is that governments have indeed stepped to the fore. As we have had, the vaccination rates are lower than the rest of the world, but I believe all the countries, most of the countries within the region, so long as you are able to provide a negative COVID test, you are able to cross the borders and be able to trade and to travel in for leisure. So Maureen, you know, what we're seeing at the moment is that domestic and regional recovery being facilitated by governments easing the restrictions across their borders. But indeed, there needs to be more in terms of financial support for the players within the aviation market to bridge over this period. We are probably going to see another spike in the COVID rates as the restrictions drop. So we just need to be able to bridge over that and give the aviation players a chance to then allow them to flourish and position themselves to come out of this pandemic.
Thank you, James. And this ties in well with some of the insights that we saw yesterday. You've mentioned that the recovery is starting with domestic and then regional. And in terms of the fleet analysis, what was shown yesterday was that African airlines are using more the regional fleet. This allows a deeper market penetration and wide coverage. I see we have Raphael back with us. Raphael, welcome back. Yes. I took over to the interest of time, and we have covered the first question on the panel. Sky and de Havilland have responded. So over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Maureen, for stepping in, and my sincere apologies to my panelists and to the entire audience. I just got a power outage that is restored now and again. Sorry about these technology challenges. So I'll just continue from where Maureen left off, and to ask my next question now. Just to get a sense from again Sky Airlines before I come to the OEMs. I just wanted to get a sense of how well the African governments have supported African aviation sector, not just airlines, during this period, and whether that is enough cushion to kick them start post-COVID in a more competitive manner. Noel?
Thank you, Raphael, and welcome back once again.
Thank you.
With regards to your question, first of all, we need to distinguish. I'll speak from the perspective of the airlines and particularly our personal experience. With regards to the operators, first of all, we need to distinguish two types of operators. We have operators that are privately owned, and we have operators that are owned by the government, because in terms of the financial support, the considerations are different. For the operators that are owned by the government, we saw a direct impact and direct contribution from the government, if not injecting direct money, but or standing as guarantee, especially when the African Development Bank put across a certain amount of money to support the industry. Most of the
was this to all state airlines?
We saw in most of the regional airlines that they did obtain this support from the state airlines. They did obtain. Yeah. We read and we saw they were injected. But for the private airlines, the situation is different because, of course, for private airlines, since they don't have any government guarantee or any government backup, you need to prove yourself like any other company. And the activity is seen, even though the activity has a huge contribution in the economy in terms of the service and its contribution, it is still really not, the consideration in terms of financial support is still not there. So for our case, for example, we didn't have any support from any government or any financial institution.
Okay, good. So at least, but what is the situation like in other parts of the region? Would you know? Where did the government support both private and government airlines?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I have heard and read about support from government airlines, which I have seen that most of the government airlines actually gained a lot of support from their governments to support their operations.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now, Randy, if I may come to you as one of the OEMs, well, do you think, in your view, that African airlines will be better off or worse off post-COVID? Because if you look at many of the airlines today, they're small size and they have very rudimentary systems and technology that they are using. Now they have low capital investments, even though there are some opportunities ahead of it. Do you think the COVID will equalize all airlines, or African airlines will still be worse off?
The size of African airlines can provide many benefits, as well as what you've alluded to in the potential to create some weights on them. So let me focus first on the benefit aspect. That size provides an ability to be nimble, an ability to react quickly without so much bureaucratic structure and need to get an entire large organization aligned on a new direction. A smaller company can pivot and react quickly. So those airlines that choose to take this opportunity to focus on the future with enhanced efficiency and looking for new opportunities are those that will position themselves well in the face of strong competition, undoubtedly. So it's an opportunity for those to leverage the remaining time as the recovery begins to take some speed and velocity to position for that competition. And Boeing, we have a number of resources that are available to assist our partner airlines, where we've been involved on the continent for over 70 years. So we have a deep relationship and understanding of the issues in the continent. And one of those areas where Boeing is prepared to partner with airlines across the continent is increasing digitalization, bringing more organization to the vast amounts of data that are a part of running a complex business like commercial aviation, and then optimize the operations across all segments. So we look forward to seeing great successes from the carriers across the continent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And happy to hear that Boeing is ready and willing. But since all airlines in Africa are potentially Boeing clients, please consider extending your support and services to all airlines rather than those who probably are currently your operators. That would be great.
In fact, we do that today without prejudice whatsoever. I will highlight our Jeppesen services that provide all of the navigation services to airlines all over the globe. no matter whether they operate turboprops or small caravans, up to the large jumbo aircraft made by any manufacturer. So we are happy to partner with any company to improve their operations, their efficiency, their safety, and their ability to serve their customers.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So that's excellent. Yeah. If I may come to Francisco, it's been talked about that after COVID, the air transport industry might not be the same. So just before we actually start talking about competitiveness of Africa, how do you think the air transport industry will look like post-COVID? What are the elements that will change?
Great to be with you here, Rafael. Thanks, Afra, for this most interesting panel as we definitely resume operations and start building this post-COVID marketplace, right? So I just back from AGA in Doha and the Dubai Air Show, and I can confirm a clearly positive perspective. 2 days ago, Embraer just released the updated 20 years market outlook that indicates we are recovering growth rates, but with a gap in terms of volume. So we are smaller than before, but growing. And this is certainly influenced by the economic activity. But to your point, the other relevant aspects of this recovery and trend is one, digitalization. People learned to do this online part of the business. And in terms of business travel, we may have a smaller amount of travel in that regard. The other aspect is regionalization. So the supply chain has been revisited in a way. Local production is being motivated as a risk protection and so on. So in terms of aviation, we shall have a greater attention to this regional capillarity that is necessary. And the third aspect, which definitely we won't get rid and it's affecting globally, is the environmental consciousness that has definitely come to stay. Aviation in particular has been questioned about that. And despite not being the greatest contributor, I feel that we are one of the greatest responders to these concerns, bringing so many new technologies which mitigate effectiveness. And coming a bit to Africa here, it's not only recovery to COVID, it's more than anything resuming the establishment of the so needed connectivity for the continent. And demand is there. There's a lot to do. And if we just refer to the previous question, yes, we're going to be better because we now must be even more agile, efficient to do the service. And we have all the conditions for that.
Ah, excellent. Now, so digitalization, regionalization, environmental consciousness, and connectivity. So if I may come to you, James, is Africa digitally ready, or is Africa prepping itself to actually get there? What do you think?
Look, I think that's a really good question, Rafael. What the COVID period has given us is an opportunity to pause collectively and reset and analyze the models that we currently have and look forward to taking advantage. If we look to the uptake of digitalization across the Africa region, I think you're seeing the digital penetration uptick increasing overall. And I think the aviation industry has to piggyback on that. One of the things we need to do is be cleverer and take advantage of this. There is the opportunities to be able to have increased use of instead of going up to counters, minimizing the contact points whether it's at the airport, whether it's going to physical places to buy tickets and check in. You know, almost everyone has a mobile phone in their hand, Raphael. And so when we're able to use that technology, be it for the purchase of tickets, be it for the dissemination of digital travel health credentials, be it to enable everyone to have a vaccine passport. As we are seeing nowadays, you know, you go up and you're able to have your travel code scanned to tell you whether you've taken your COVID test or not. I think the more that airlines pick that up on using digitization, the more you'll be able to facilitate the increased number of passengers and the depth of people being able to travel to and from. So I absolutely believe that we are ready. We need to take advantage of the digital wave sweeping across the continent to be able to do that. And on the OEM side, I think we also need to be able to assist our airlines to make, you know, people comfortable to travel again, whether it's through the use of, you know, technology to ensure that the cabins are clean, or indeed whether it's through the use of technology to look at enhanced ways of reducing the carbon footprint. We all have a role to play in ensuring that the future of the aviation industry is a much cleaner, a much sustainable one, and one we're able to take advantage and deepen the breadth of people that travel on our aircraft.
Well, thanks for that. Noel, two elements here. Francisco mentioned regionalization and connectivity as critical to recovery and industry's competitiveness in Africa. What are your thoughts about that, especially with regards to the airlines in Africa?
Well, you know, post-COVID, we should see it as an opportunity, really, to reorganize ourselves. You know, in the aviation industry in Africa before the 90s, the focus was on safety. And when the 9/11 incident happened, it shifted from safety to security. Now we have COVID. It has moved now it has intensified back to safety, but more or less health safety. And this has impacted consumer behavior. So it is an opportunity, a very big opportunity for airlines in Africa to restructure. To take a break. So many airlines have stopped flying. Fleet is hugely available in the market now, and rates are some more or less cheaper than before. So airlines should restructure in terms of their fleet, the market, the network. They can also restructure in terms of the network planning and routes that they deliver, but most importantly, to focus on customer deliveries, where the customer behavior has changed and most customers are now adapting to digital and technology because they want their independence. They want to be able to book their tickets without limiting contacts. They want to be able to do their check-ins without having all the hassle at the airports. So this is a big opportunity for the airlines to restructure and readapt, and it's a challenge, of course.
So are we doing that adjustment? Is ASky doing that adjustments, and are other airlines doing that adjustments in Africa?
We are definitely, as an airline, ASky is definitely recently, in terms of enhancing our customer delivery, we recently acquired an in-flight wireless entertainment to improve on our customer, if you like, entertainment or distraction on board, so that we can take the minds of our customer off COVID while they enjoy the flight. So these are the elements, these are the new elements we are bringing in order to enhance our customer delivery.
Great. Now, Randy, in the midst of limited resources, particularly for African airlines, limited support from governments, the slowdown in traffic growth, and no financial resource at their disposal. Now they are having to restructure, reorganize themselves, go digital in order to prep themselves for the future. How do they do this? Do you think there's a way they can actually short circuit this process without any external support?
There are programs for different segments of the digital journey that airlines will be embarking on in the coming years. What we've just heard a lot of discussion about is the passenger digitalization aspect, which is crucial to enabling participation in the industry by those who help us generate the revenue. Similarly,
we lost Randy for a moment.
Yes.
Randy, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I think we've lost Randy for a moment. So, Francisco, how do you think airlines can invest in this digitalization whilst we wait for Randy to join us?
If I could try again, Rafael, I saw your screen freezing and I think my connection was okay.
Hello, I think we've frozen. Can the technicians help us?
I believe I am okay.
Hello?
Brandy, maybe carry on.
Hello?
Randy, I do believe we can hear you.
Okay, very good then. So as I was saying, the other piece of the digital opportunity for airlines is on the operational aspect to help reduce the cost structure in order to improve the potential for profitability. We've seen historically—
Hi, Noel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. I can hear Randy as well.
So we have seen that there has been no challenge, or there's been great challenge to profitability across the continent. And one of the ways going forward,
I'm the only one who cannot hear.
as there are challenges to generating revenue, the airline industry will be able to help increase the probability of constant profit is by reducing cost structure. And so improving efficiencies in maintenance, in flight operations, even in crew scheduling. There are plenty of opportunities in many airlines. Some airlines are already extremely efficient, but there are airlines who could enhance their efficiency in those areas. And at Boeing, we provide a full menu of services that are available by subscription and don't require huge capital investments, but an ongoing service fee. So that's a great way for airlines of any size to begin participating in the digital journey.
Oh, thank you so much, Randy. Francisco, do you have any thoughts on digitization, how African airlines can go about it?
Look, Rafael, I think there's common sense from what I have heard in this trip in the Middle East that efficiency and agility are essential, right? And this, in terms of efficiency, is not burning less fuel. It goes much beyond. It's an holistic view of efficiency. And we can certainly contribute on what concerns us. And if you talk about fleet, I don't think it starts with the fleet optimization. It starts with the mission. And the airline must have your mission. And there you develop the most optimal fleet solution for that. And the mission are the network optimization and the schedule optimization, making it a consistent service to the passenger. We have been supporting airlines to develop their business plans, optimizing that sense. And this is basic for granting support, financial support for the project and to the success of the operation down the line. And agility comes along with that. We have in general, with this more necessary capillarity of operations, our products give you the flexibility to manage the capacity demand match in a more regular way, let's say. You are not so fixed, and you can sustain the network with the necessary frequencies without hurting your economic results. O Embraer also has one extensive catalog of services, and we are very proud of being able to offer flexible and very customized solutions for the customers, which will not force them to fit products off the shelf. So we know the region, and we know how much we have to adapt to make it work and make it sustainable to the airline itself.
Seems Rafael has some technical issue with the sound. Rafael, we can hear the panelists. Randy has spoken, and Francisco giving the kind of solutions and services they give to support airlines. Maybe you can try speak confirm. Can you hear me, Rafael?
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
sorry about that.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
That's what we are talking about, Rafael. We need agility here to manage the challenges, and we have been doing that. We know how to do it better than anyone else.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, really, agility is a challenge, and as Randy indicated earlier on, the small size of African airlines also gives them the ability to be more agile than other bigger carriers, which have a bigger burden actually in transforming themselves. It is a great response. Thank you for that. Now, beyond digitization, which are the other areas that you think African airlines should focus on to be competitive post-COVID? Can I go to James for this first?
Absolutely, Rafael. Look, you know, one of the things that's always easier said than done is having fleet flexibility without increasing your fleet complexity. You know, airlines or aircraft are high value investments that take quite a period of time to get to the decision. And when you do get the aircraft, you know, you've made a longer term investment. And so when you come upon a crisis, it's very hard to pivot to, you know, the right fleet size or the right size of fleet to get you through the crisis. And I think it's a dual effort, Rafael, where the OEM and the customer should partner to create or to enable that fleet flexibility. So for example, at the onset of the pandemic, de Havilland came out with the simplified package freighter, which was essentially a quick change of being able to remove all the seats from the Dash 8 aircraft within 4 hours. And then you've got a dedicated freighter at hand. And we've since built on that and have now got 3 additional iterations of freighter configurations, from a cargo combi to a package freighter to a dedicated freighter with a large cargo door. And what that allows us to do is create or allow your customer to have flexibility where they're able to take advantage of both scheduled passenger and cargo opportunities, or indeed pivot and be able to take advantage when the passenger traffic stalled into the charter market. And a good example is, you know, one of our friends in Kenya, 748 Air Services, who were the global launch customer for the simplified package freighter. So, and they've gone on since to start new routes within Kenya into scheduled services from charter using the Dash 8 400. So, you know, these are the type of fleet flexibilities that are needed. And the type of partnerships that are needed between the OEM and the customer, Rafael?
Thank you so much for that. Randy, just hanging on that point, I have seen and I'm hearing the need for us to put in more freighter services because the freight business is growing and would continue to grow in the foreseeable future. Now, I always have a feeling that we probably, if care is not taken, might actually over diversify into the freighter area at the expense of passenger business. What are your thoughts on that?
Rafael, you raise a very good point, and like some of my other panelists have identified, versatility of fleet types is absolutely crucial and has always been an important part of the air cargo movement. Prior to the pandemic, 50% of all global air moved in the lower hold of passenger airplanes. But then when all of the borders closed and passenger travel ceased, suddenly there was a dearth of air freight capacity. And that was then further exacerbated by ports being blocked and shipping having fleets parked offshore waiting to be offloaded. So that drove up demand. At the same time, e-commerce has taken off. And we don't see that changing habits in the future. So there's going to be demand for a significant amount of dedicated freight. But back to having limited resources for airlines to invest in fleet types across Africa, having a versatile fleet, the 737, for example, has capacity to carry not only passenger baggage, but additional revenue cargo. And then in the body space, again, African carriers, I think of in particular Ethiopian Airlines, quickly did exactly the same kind of thing that we heard from our de Havilland colleague, passenger airplanes to freight-only services. And so that versatility of fleet is so crucial for airlines, no matter which segment of the markets they're operating in, be it domestic, international, or longer haul markets. Having the ability to capture revenue in all segments is important, and not over-focus on any of those, but a balanced approach is crucial for long-term success.
Indeed, a balanced approach, very critical. Thank you. Francisco, now, overall, cost in Africa is a big issue. And we have matters retaining to visas, access, and actually visa cost. We have operational cost, and we have all other restrictions regarding fuel cost that are impacting on the overall cost base of an African operator. What should we be seeing governments doing to alleviate this difficulty for airlines, to make them competitive going forward?
Well, I think the same way airlines are taking the just passed route of COVID crisis to restructure and tackle those inefficiencies that were there, but because we were up and running, you didn't pay that attention. So government should do the same and refine these taxes and fees that are imposed in the continent. And so we may not ask for incentive subsidies or even aid. We ask for a refinement of those of that marketplace so we can operate in a compatible way to Western countries, European, US, things like that. Because at the end, when we have, for instance, to access aircraft, fuel, pilots, we pay the same rates, and they ask us to be provide affordable travel in a more hostile environment in terms of fees and regulations. So it's definitely an opportunity to do so. I take the chance to come back here on the cargo. So that's clear. that it got a special attention in terms of COVID pandemic, and they just released Embraer Outlook for the first time addresses cargo, and we forecast worldwide the need for around 700 of these smaller crossover cargo aircraft worldwide, 700 aircraft worldwide, and we shall be addressing that as well. What else you said to be done beyond digitalization? The demand there in Africa is there. As I said, it's not recovering what we had before pandemic. It's much more than that. It's really resuming the establishment of all the connectivity that we need. And beyond aircraft, you need the whole infrastructure, the human resources to manage that. Aviation is a very human resource consuming industry. And in this sense, Embraer has a few initiatives to establish local capabilities as a natural evolution of the current of the airline's line operation. So we try to support and organize a roadmap so airlines can naturally reach the necessary local capabilities when the heavy check, for instance, comes, and when the recurrent training of pilots come, so on and so forth. It all comes together.
Yeah, thanks, Noel. Talking about human resource being a critical element, I know that sooner or later, as traffic begins to pick up, one of our biggest challenge as Africa would actually be in having our highly trained, qualified, and competent human resource being taken away by those who can afford to pay more. Is ASky, and for that matter, African Airlines, putting measures in place to actually retain the critical human resource that we will need to be competitive post-COVID?
Thank you very much, Raphael. It is really critical because the African aviation industry actually needs to grow in terms of the human capital. There's a lot that needs to be done. And when we try to segment the various categories of experts, we can take the categories of those of flying crew, ground staff, ticketing, operations, and all of that. We can look at it differently. In some areas, you don't have a choice as an airline. You need to match the industry standards, because if you don't train and pay according to industry standards, they will leave. So you don't have a choice. And this is where there is a burden in terms of cost for human capital. On the other hand, we have other areas where you need continuous self-development as an individual, as an employee, as well as training depending on your employee. And these are areas where the airline is investing to create an academy, a partnership. For example, for ASky is working in partnership with the Ethiopian Airlines Academy to continue to provide a continuous training process in order to maintain the level of human resource that is required in order to deliver. So airlines must invest in training their staff, developing academies in order to maintain sustainability of the quality of staff that is required.
But in the midst of all of this, the challenge is the resources to be able to do all of these things. Considering the difficulty facing African Airlines and the little support that is forthcoming, there's a lot that we need to do, and there's a lot of investment going forward, but this could be a challenge. But Randy, let me come to you on a very critical question that I've been asked over and over. It is this, that Airbnb transformed the hotel industry, and the Uber transformed the taxi industry, and so did Amazon and Co. transform the retail sector. Are we now post-COVID likely to see a new type business module in the aviation sector that will sweep over or sweep away the traditional airlines that we know today?
The risk of appearing blind, I don't see an imminent change horizon. Change will come. There is no doubt that the industry will continue to evolve. It's evolved since the inception of powered flight, but that change is not coming immediately. More importantly, the most near-term change will be assuring a smooth health safety journey for the passenger. And I may circle back to something you were asking some of the other panelists about, the potential ways where governments can continue to support resumption of commerce, which is good for everyone while protecting health, is assuring not only access to vaccines as vaccine distribution becomes available, but assuring safety through making COVID testing reasonably priced and accessible for the general public that would like to travel. I know Africa, while the middle income households are growing rapidly today, there are those for which the cost of a PCR test could be prohibitive. So a near-term focus, again, for the industry needs to be continuing to ensure that today's mode of transportation is accessible, continue to enhance in efficiency with upgraded technologies around the system today. Entirely new business models, not so much. Increased efficiency, where perhaps the low-cost carrier business model of several decades ago was very transformative. Maybe that focus on low cost becomes more the norm for all carriers. So I see more of a evolution rather than a revolution.
And Rafael, if I just may,
Yes.
Add on to that, I think Randy's last point there is actually one that we need to look at, because for far too long we've been seeing flag carriers that focused on transcontinental movement of passengers and goods, and there's in this continent of ours, which has quite a number of resources, from the minerals to the agricultural resources to the human resources, where intra-Africa trade is still at a very low number. I think you will look at not a change in the model, but a focus more so on the continent and how to move these resources on the continent from place to place, increasing the trade on the continent. And this, could be on the back of the single African air transport market. If that gets ratified, I think once we see that, it could be, to Randy's point, the LCC model that revolutionized Asia's transport did the same to the European transport. Maybe this is the transformative trigger that is needed for the region. There's certainly an increase or a proliferation in the number of airlines that are looking to focus on domestic and regional travel. So I think that is what you see, an increased focus in the short term.
Oh, excellent addition to that point. And Francisco, so what would be the catalyst for a refocus by many of the African airlines on intra-African operations, rather than this oversized appetite for intercontinental operations? What will actually be the driver? What will move us in that direction?
Well, Rafael, we have a few flagship projects on that. So SATAM is one of that. And then with free visa traveling is another one. And the free trade area is the third one. This together will definitely change, and everybody's anticipating that already. So if we lagged with the SATAM, the others are certainly come, and people are anticipating and get ready for that. So we see brand new aircraft coming to the country exactly for that. So we delivered 5 brand new next-gen EU95 E2s to Air Peace. And we just announced additional orders of new aircraft in Nigeria or to overland areas. Congo Airways is also getting brand new aircraft still this year. And there were other announcements recently. I think I see appetite from financiers for that, because the demand, the opportunity is there, and this is what drives more than anything else. So it's up to us to do it properly, let's say, with all lessons learned that we have now.
Thank you, Francisco. As we round up, while the conversation is getting exciting, time is fast spent. We just have 3 minutes to round up, and I would want to give each of you, Maureen, pardon me, I take 1 additional minute of time. Each of you 1 minute to actually give me at least 2 points on how African aviation can move itself forward towards competitiveness once COVID is behind us. Starting with, let me start with Randy, please.
I would like to take a second to say thank you to AFRA for giving us the opportunity to share this exchange. But in terms of 2 points, flexibility, versatility are one of those 2 points, and that involves network and fleet. And then focus on efficiency and sustainability. It is the land of the continent of Africa that has been the source of commerce, the natural resources, as well as the source of a lot of tourism. So protecting the land for the future will protect the industry.
Excellent summary. Thank you. Thank you so much. Francisco?
Yeah, difficult to complement, Rand. Very well said. I think aviation is extremely necessary for the continent. Demand is there. Efficiency, agility, and environmental consciousness is what we need. And it's up to us to do it right, as we said. We are good to go.
Thank
Count
you.
on us.
Thank you so much. Flexibility. Oh, that's the hallmark. Yes, now James, your 2 cents.
Thank you, Rafael. You know, building on what my esteemed colleagues have said, I truly do believe that there is an untapped potential in tapping into the much needed intra-Africa connectivity. So I believe, you know, strategic route selections, which we have seen with airlines looking to start hubs out of different areas, for example, the jumbo jets of this world, or flying into new cross-border markets, and coming with this intra-Africa connectivity, I think is definitely the embracing of technology, embrace the change and focus on those technologies that will eke out efficiencies in the system.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, very much, James. And last but not the least, can I hear from Noel, please?
Thank you, Rafael. One element for me, the most important, collaboration. Collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Because when we collaborate, especially amongst airlines, we expand and develop and grow our markets. We should go beyond code shares and interline agreements and even enter into joint ventures. Because when we do this, we shape the market, we stick together, especially with COVID. Now, we can be able to intensify our collaboration and stick together to shape the market and develop African aviation. Lastly, we need open skies. We shouldn't say it, but we should practice it. Most of the governments and countries that have signed, they should be able to implement it. And those that are still lagging behind should come up also and sign, so that we effectively can improve on connectivity and grow inter-African traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it from my panelists. Flexibility, network and fleet flexibility without complexity is #1 key thing that Africa needs to focus on, in addition to ensuring there's sustainability in whatever we do. We also need to harness connectivity in the new dispensation brought about by AFTA and the SATAM. And finally, collaboration among African airlines. We cannot emphasize this more, but collaboration is critical, and practice what you have signed. Ladies and gentlemen, our countries, we urge our governments to open up their markets. Let us be more competitive and let us have access to everyone who wants to join us to do business. Thank you very much to Mr. Randy, Mr. Francisco, Ms. James, and Noel for eloquently handling the topic. And to the audience, we thank you very much for your attention. And I now want to hand over back to Maureen in the studios. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to
Thanks.
our very able panelists and to our moderator for articulating on the various issues around enhancement of the competitiveness of the air transport sector in Africa. Some very good take-home points, very much in line with the discussions of yesterday, and to add on to the concepts that are coming as our actions is, I like the aspect of agility, flexibility, and to add on to the other key message from yesterday, collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. You cannot have more, enough of collaboration amongst African airlines for us to be competitive and succeed in the post-COVID era. We will be moving swiftly to the next session, which is our last working session before we proceed to the closing ceremony. We have our main subject is on airline retailing. We shall have a 15 minutes presentation by SITA, and they will give a perspective on African airline retailing, a perspective of SITA for aircraft. After that, we shall have the last panel, and the panel will be discussing optimizing retailing for airline profitability. Join us in the next minute for the presentation by SITA before we proceed to the panel discussion. Thank you.